This is the FATT Show. I'm D.
I'm Kevin.
FATT Show's football all the time. We talk NFL, we talk college football, and high school football even.
Yes.
And today we're talking about the UCLA Bruins 2017 recruiting class, Kevin. And not a bad class, ranked 20th or so in the nation and number 4 in the Pac-12. But before we talk about the recruiting, let's revisit a little bit about how they did last year.
Well, we're looking at 2016 of UCLA. Overall they had a 4-8 record. And they didn't make a bowl game. But notice in the Pac-12 they were 2-7. D. When you talk about the likes of these wins, UNLV, BYU, University of Arizona Wildcats, Oregon State Beavers, winning those games, then of course facing tough competition like Stanford, like Washington State, some of these other ones in the Pac-12, made it very difficult for UCLA and really Coach Mora. Now, really, when you look back at them, really it was a rebuilding kind of a year for them. Losing people like Anthony Barr, Michael Kendricks, who are both playing in the NFL, play for the Minnesota Vikings, in fact, in the NFL. So losing those type of players, you're going to hurt, especially on the defensive line. But really, let's look at the quarterback for UCLA, Josh Rosen, who is coming in as a junior this year. Now, D, he as a freshman, he had thrown 3,669 yards, played in 13 games, but then he didn't see that much production his sophomore year. Sophomore year, he threw for 1,915 yards as a sophomore, but it only played 6 games. But really, what we see here is his quarterback rating really stayed the same, 135. QB rating, 60% passer rating. So he was those both years. Even though less games, less production, he still stayed somewhat in that realm there.
Yeah, and he's a good quarterback. I mean, you playing for the UCLA Bruins. We're looking at, in my mind, I'm seeing him making a substantial leap back to his former self. And you mentioned production-wise, you're expecting pretty much the same out of him when he's in the game, when he's on the field. So we would expect the same going forward for this year.
What I would like to see, though, D, is I'd like to see 6'4", 210 pounds. I would like to see maybe some more muscle on that frame, especially when you're talking about being a junior, possibly not having the same offensive line that maybe you had last year. A little bit of change there, but so you got to be built really tough as a quarterback, especially on the blind side that you see sometimes a opposing defensive lineman get sacked. So really, we look at also the running backs. Nate Starks coming back as a senior. Bolu Olorunfunmi.
That's not easy to say.
That is not easy to say. He's coming as a junior. Now, both of these backs I thought was interesting because they both average about 4.4 yards on the ground. So you're really not getting mass production when you look at, but you are getting some production. So that's going to help Josh Rosen with some of his quarterbacking. Now, these are 5'10", 220 pounds is Bolu. Who, that's a pretty big stature of a back in the backfield. So, again, that 1-2 punch that you always want to have when you're talking about your offense. Now, what I like also, too, is their wide receiver, that of Sasso Jamabo.
Another one that's not easy to say.
Another one. This guy, 6'3", 210 pounds, coming in as a junior. Now, this is a playmaker that I think is going to be a big difference maker this year. 12.1 yards last year. I expect a breakout season for this player coming as wide receiver. Now, when you talk about wide receivers, D, you do talk about that connection that these quarterbacks are going to have with these wide receivers.
Sure, you're going to have a connection, and you're going to want, the more reps you have, obviously, the more rapport you're going to have with one another. And so you would expect another year under their belt to really solidify that wide receiver quarterback connection.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be important, too, when you talk about some of these points that putting up. When we see last year putting up points, 42 points on UNLV, putting on Arizona, University of Arizona, 45 points on them, and then putting on Oregon State 38 points. And remember, this is an Oregon State team that beat Oregon with Nall at running back. So again, that's pretty impressive when you look at some of the point production they were able to get. But knowing that there's always you lose some players
and inconsistency.
Yeah. So you see that, but really where I see the big hurt for UCLA is really their defensive line. Their defensive line is really the recruiting need to me. When you talk about being able to not only if you're scoring points, but stopping somebody. Because we can see sometimes in those scores last year, 42-21, 45-24, 38-24. So again, you're not really stopping a lot of people. They are scoring points on your defense, as it were. But really,
well, and you have spread offenses in the Pac-12. You got a lot of offenses out there that are going to be putting up points. So again, we talked about this earlier in another episode. You can't go into the season thinking you're just going to outscore everybody. It's not going to happen. You have to have a strategy of a defense that's going to be able to make at least one or two stops down the road there.
Right, and then I think that's important. So really, I look at that in our segment, really, when we're talking about the recruiting aspect of really what Coach Mora has been wanting to address with his team. I see a big blend, a pretty good balanced blend of recruits. When we look at taken for 2017, 4 D linemen, 4 defensive backs, 4 offensive tackles. You have 1 QB, 2 athletes, 2 tight ends. So I think when you look at the linemen, again, we've always said on this show that, again, in the trenches, that's where you need it.
You do. You really need that in the trenches. We focus on that a lot, defensive linemen, offensive linemen. And it's, you do see a focus here from Mora and his crew on defense here, which is where, we are seeing the need is.
Yeah, and we look at the defensive coordinator, which I'm pretty glad, I'm pretty sure that he's glad. Tom Bradley, a defensive coordinator here with UCLA, pretty glad to have some of these recruits come in. Really starting with Jalen Phillips out of Redlands, California. Wow.
Yeah, this kid is ranked basically number 1 overall nationally. I mean, this is the biggest get of the whole entire recruiting season. I mean, they're ranked number 1. And Kevin, according to him, he doesn't feel like he really belongs there.
Interesting. This is a 6'5", 253-pound, defensive end, and this is a guy he quoted. He says that he doesn't know why he's a 5-star. He says that he needs improvement. I tell you, quotes like that, really, when you look at a defensive coordinator and Tom Bradley, he's salivating at a recruit like that because this guy wants to work. Wow.
Yeah, he does, and not only that, but there's something to be said for an athlete, a recruit that is so good, and they realize that they have more to go, versus the other where you can say, well, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, and you're not really true to who you really think you are. I mean, he really is being true to himself on this.
When you look at that, D, you look at a situation where a person, a 5-star athlete, if they feel that they're entitled, they've been hearing it all during high school, you're a 5-star. And they think that really all they have to do is really show up to camp, show up to spring camp, and show up and just be able to play and go through the motions. And really you see a player that doesn't look at themselves that way, doesn't feel entitled. They're working their tail off.
Well, and we've heard from former athletes, former high school athletes, I mean, being number 1 or a 5-star athlete, 4-star athlete in high school, when you get to college, everybody's faster. Everybody's, there's high school All-Americans all over the place.
So true.
Everybody's faster. Everybody's stronger. You're just going up into that next level. So it's a good attitude to have, to say, you know what, they might think that I'm really good, but I need to work hard to really prove that to myself.
Yeah, and a lot of times coaches will tend to break down film, especially in the film room. That's really where you get an eye-opening experience as a player to see what you're doing wrong, and they point out to you what needs to improve. And so again, a person like this coming in as a recruit, having that kind of attitude, that bodes really well for their defense.
I think it really does. And, there's so many things that between now and when you step on the field even, between potential injuries or just circumstances.
Sure.
You're going to a team that at least last year wasn't really all that great. So again, you're looking at facing competition that's stiff in the Pac-12, and so you want to make sure that if people are setting a ceiling for you, that you kind of bust through that ceiling and say, you know what, I have a lot of room for improvement. I got a long ways to go. I'm only a freshman,
right.
But this is a great attitude to have for this kid.
Very much so. And so this is one of the 5-stars that UCLA has. Another 5-star, Darnay Holmes. This is going to be a cornerback Defensive back, 5'10", 190 pounds.
Yeah, excellent. Again, defense. We talked about the 5 stars. There's only about 32 of them in the entire nation.
Yes.
And the reason, again, to kind of close the reasoning behind that, they want to mirror the first round of the NFL draft, basically. So the top 32 recruits, potentially, if they were, carry their careers forward in the same trajectory, would be first-round picks in the NFL draft. And so, yeah, these are 2 excellent, and to get 2 5 stars,
wow.
It's
after last year.
Yeah, and usually you get some excitement from a team, if they're in, like Washington did, because they won the Pac-12. They
reaped the benefit of a good record.
So then people want to kind of join the winning team. In this case, you've got smart athletes. I mean, and Coach Mora even said, these athletes, it's not just that they're strong, and it's not that, so much that they're football knowledgeable, but they're smart. I mean, they're going to UCLA for number one, and they have an intelligence not just on the football field, but in the classroom as well.
Which is important on and off the field. It's important to have. He's from Calabasas, California. So again, staying within the home state of California, the UCLA Bruins are. Another one I want to talk about is Greg Rogers, a defensive tackle, 6'3", 305 pounds. 4-star out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, addressing some of the needs that UCLA has on the defensive line.
Yeah, lots of needs there in the defense, and so it looks like they're addressing it, which it could bode well. Maybe not for this next year, but maybe for a couple years down the road.
Yeah, because you look at sometimes these recruits want to get a chance to get time early, and I can sometimes coaches will let them know, hey, you have a chance to possibly play early. So again, it gets that recruit excited to want to join UCLA. And so we have another one, Stephen Zabi, offensive tackle, 6'5", 290 pounds, 4-star out of Austin, Texas. So they went somewhere else there.
They sure did. And, we've talked about the Texas pipeline and how some of these recruits are, they're kind of stealing away from Texas. But, with as big a state as Texas is, the amount of football that's played down in Texas, you can see that there will be other schools that will be kind of grabbing those players, and UCLA's managed to do that here.
Yeah, so really looking at a whole of UCLA fans, UCLA fans, stay with the course. I mean, really, you look at Coach Mora, what he's been able to do. I mean, there has been some success there. But you look at an overall record of 4-8. Losing to teams like Texas A&M on your opener, 2-7 over on the Pac-12. Again, it was a rebuilding year. You lost a lot to the NFL, but you look at what you have to work with in the cupboard, but then also what you have to add to that, being like ingredients to a good recipe. You look at really what they're able to do. So again, addressing the needs on the defensive line and the offensive line is really what they won big here, I think.
I think they did too. I think it's a really good recruiting class. Again, somewhere around 20th nationally and 4 in the Pac-12. It's a good recruiting class. It's very solid. And again, you're not probably going to make too much improvement for next year. We're looking at maybe 2 years down the road for maybe contending in the South there. What do you see, Kevin, for their record coming up this next year?
Well, I think the thing is with UCLA, to me their record, I think that they will be somewhere in the South Division in the middle. They have addressed some of those needs with regards to their defense and offensive line, but again, what they have to work with, again, it's all about what these players, are they gearing themselves ready to make a statement? Like players like Jamabo, Sasso Jamabo, who's coming in as a junior. Some of these players are coming in as juniors. They've already had their sophomore year. So this is their breakout years, junior and senior year. You've been in the program 2 years. You've understood really what the scheme is offensively. You've obviously understand what the defensive coordinator is trying to do with your team. So really, this is a time that I think really you shine. Now, I do see an overall improvement, definitely from 4-8. I definitely see them somewhere in the middle of that, possibly be a 5. Maybe 5 wins this year. But again, fighting for a bowl game. Again, in the South, with likes of USC, and you have Arizona teams in there. So again, these ones are jockeying for position to see what they can do to, against USC. And UCLA USC is always a fun game to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And so UCLA, I kind of see them making some improvements too, especially if they can get some of these players on the field. I think that they can make some improvement. I don't think it'll be substantial. They have a shot at a bowl game, and I think that's where we both kind of agree. They've got a shot. So 6-6 doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility for these guys. So UCLA fans, hang on to your hopes there. Don't expect a lot this next year, but look to make contention in a couple of years.
Very much so. And I think, for UCLA, you do really have to be patient with Coach Mora. He's had, like I said, success in the past. It's one of those things where, again, recruiting plays such a big part in what you're trying to do with your football program and what you're trying to do going forward. It's about grabbing those athletes that you need to be able to address those positions in play that you need. And I think if they're able to do that, they can compete with the likes possibly of those Arizona schools. Maybe surprise the USC, but it's going to be hard, really a tough order. But I think, again, they're going to be okay.
Well, with USC being the favorite to win the Pac-12 this year, or one of two teams basically favored, it's going to be pretty hard to do that. But in a couple of years, I think that UCLA can make a run at it. So that's where we're at today with UCLA Bruins. This has been the FATT Show. I'm D.
I'm Kevin.
And we will see you next time.
Next time.